Welcome back, guys. This is the Willkommen. Das ist Gaming with Austin. Und heute ich werde continue on Pyramid Stadt Episode 41. Episode 41. Liga 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, one of the things. Why is it that obesity rates kept on rising despite Michelle Obama's efforts to curb the epidemic? Researchers have discovered that even sewer rats have started becoming obese too. Not just humans, but also sewer rats. Especially the sewer rats that inhabited close to the industrial area. That probably means that breathing in dirty air from both factories and from cars has a link towards the epidemic. I know some of us don't want to believe this, but it's actually pretty true. Breathing in dirty air puts you at a greater risk for obesity. Usually people that are essentially obese tend to have an exaggerated waist-to-hip ratio. Central obesity is actually the worst type of obesity there is. But peripheral obesity is a type of obesity usually found in sumo wrestlers. That's because, even if they are obese, they don't have much visceral fat. How did we discover the missing link that was causing obesity rates to rise despite government efforts in the developed world? We found obese sewer rats living near industrial areas. And when they reproduce, their offspring start off at a normal weight. Rats tend to reproduce very quickly. At birth, they start off being at a healthy weight, then early in life, they end up gaining weight very quickly. So the link that was causing obesity rates to rise despite government efforts, a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are breathing in dirty air. Now, very likely the obesity epidemic started much earlier than the 1980s. Obesity rates might have actually started going on the rise, at the start of the Industrial Revolution. If we want to fight the obesity epidemic, we need to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. Because back in the 1950s, even though children ate a lot of junk food, they were pretty skinny. That's because many of us did not live in urban areas like we do now. And people that live in urban areas are often living where air quality is kind of questionable. In areas with questionable air quality. The worse the air quality is, the more likely you are to become obese. Overweight or obese. The worse the air... That probably explains why obesity rates kept rising despite Michelle Obama's efforts. If you eat nothing but junk food yet maintain a constant caloric intake, you could actually end up becoming very skinny. Simply from what you're eating. Breathing in dirty air, it doesn't just affect your appetite. It might affect your metabolism too. And it can alter your DNA, changing the chemical composition of your DNA. That is called a mutagen. Chemicals that alter your DNA are called mutagens. Some of those mutagens don't just have a link to cancer, but they also have a link to birth defects too. Mutagens don't just cause cancer. They can also cause birth defects. With transgenerational effect. A transgenerational mutagen in which the effects are passed on to the offspring. One example of such is Agent Orange. One thing Sfarage does is he pretends that obesity does not exist. Claiming that even the normal fat percentage people, like what many of us call, he claims that they are considered, quote, they are considered underweight. I was just quoting that. Like, eventually we'll be in the part of the obesity epidemic in which diet and exercise has little to no effect whatsoever. That is because it's not just diet and exercise. Because even though we are exercising more and more now, we are eating sort of the same types of food we've been eating in the 1950s and 60s. A lot of it has to do with the fact that we are breathing in dirty air. Yes, even it's very likely that prenatal exposure to the dust particulates that come from factories can put the child at risk for obesity even before they're even born. Meaning, there'd be nothing the parent could do to prevent the child from becoming overweight, regardless of what they do. Neither the parent nor the child could help it. Except for to move to an area that has cleaner air. How does it affect the obesity, your likelihood of becoming overweight or obese? Air quality plays a role. The truth is, even there are obese people that are eating healthy and exercising, yet they're still not losing weight. So what's the problem here? Air quality has to play a pretty big role. The effects can be permanent. The effects are likely to be permanent, and possibly even transgenerational, similar to the effects of Agent Orange. Similar to Agent Orange, which was the stuff used in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. In which, even though the children's parents or grandparents have been exposed to it, the effects are being felt in their descendants today, even though they haven't gone through the war at all. That's how dangerous, that's how mutagenic Agent Orange is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The dirty air, the effects are potentially transgenerational, similar to the effects of Agent Orange. Meaning, basically, once you've been exposed to those obesogenic chemicals found in dust particulates from the factory, there's no turning back. For most of us. There is no turning back. How does factories contribute to the obesity epidemic? One of those chemicals from the factory that is involved in the obesity epidemic is carbon dioxide, because a huge amount of CO2 being released into the air is affecting our food composition too. Like the nutrient composition of our fruits we love to eat as adults, and kids too. It's even turning our vegetables into junk food. Yes, it's even turning our vegetables into full-on junk food. So, the only way how we can reduce the obesity epidemic is to reduce the only thing we can do that might be the only thing left that we can do, because for decades we blamed the obesity epidemic all on fast food. There are people out there that eat fast food that are skinny, yet they still eat fast food. Excuse me. yet they still eat fast food. So basically, the only way how we could reduce the obesity epidemic, that might be the only thing left, would be to cut down on fossil fuels. And start investing in renewables. And encourage people to go vegan. From an early age. Basically encourage people to go on a vegan diet from an early age. But you know, for some people, they can't go vegan at all, because they don't produce a certain enzyme complex that they need in order to survive. And yes, there are animals that must eat meat to survive. All members of the cat family are obligate carnivores by nature. My biggest theory, in my theory on why cats still hunt to this day, even though we domesticated them over thousands of years, the biggest theory I have yet is that cats are obligate carnivores. They are obligate carnivores. Meaning without their hunting skills, the feral cats would die without their hunting skills. They need those hunting skills in order to survive. We need their hunting skills so we could stay alive too, because one of our biggest enemies, sewer rats, that like to steal our food. And they spread disease like wildfire. Even though killing animals is kind of unethical, cats can't have a sense of ethics. That's because they're one of only a few mammals that must eat meat to survive. For cats, survival comes before ethics. For humans, ethics and survival can come side by side. But for obligate carnivores like cats, survival is top priority. Which means they must eat meat. Which means they have to kill animals when they're outside. The effects of those obesogens that are coming straight from the factory released into the air one thing that affects our food preference most is our genetics. Which probably explains why children still eat so much sugar. Naturally, they tend to go towards sweet stuff in nature. It's that the parent never teaches their child that sweet stuff is good for them to begin with. It's that even if we stop marketing candy to children, they're still gonna eat a lot of sugar anyway. Regardless of what we do. Because you can't mess with certain aspects of biology. It's not just humans that find it hard to lose weight. Even certain animals might find it... Most mammals actually do find it hard to lose weight anyway. A lot of it has to do with biology. Excuse me. Even the cold-blooded mammals need body fat to stay healthy. Even the cold-blooded animals must store some fat in order to stay healthy. And that's because your body fat's not just there to keep you warm. It's not just there to help you survive through famine. It's also there to ensure that you can absorb enough vitamin D to keep your bones strong. Because when you go down to almost 0% body fat, you're going to suffer from serious health problems. One of those health problems associated with getting extremely lean would be osteoporosis and osteomalacia. That could happen to you if you become extremely lean. And your workouts are gonna suck. Children who get extremely lean could develop rickets. If a vegan diet's not carefully planned, you'd be at a greater risk of rickets if it's planned on a child. The reason why some people are discouraged from putting their child on a vegan diet or children, that's because there have been reports of children dying as a result of vegan diets. How does a plant-based diet reduce obesity rates? It changes your gut bacteria. Because, your gut bacteria kind of plays a role in preventing you from becoming overweight. If your body cannot break down starch into sugar, then starch becomes a poison. Cats are one of those few mammals that must eat meat to survive. Even in the capital of China, Beijing, Peking, obesity rates are, even in the developing world, we're still seeing obesity rates climb, even in the absence of fast food joints. That is because of dirty air. some societies, obesity is a sign of wealth. Obesity is a sign of wealth in some societies. Especially North Korea. But you know, for some people, they need to be obese in order to be healthy. Because they have a greater requirement for at least one of the 4 groups of fat-soluble vitamins. If they get down to what most of us would call average fat percentage, they would show signs of bone deterioration. What can cause your body to have trouble absorbing vitamin D? Getting extremely lean, like maintaining a lean fat percentage. Basically, but the good news is not all overweight people are going to develop health problems. That is because some of them simply store all their fat just beneath their skin. Because of a hormone called adiponectin. Which explains how sumo wrestlers tend to stay very healthy, while being obese at the same time. In strongman sports, being fat can actually have a pretty good advantage. Because not only you need strong muscles to lift really heavy weights, you also need strong bones too. Which means you need to increase your vitamin D absorption levels. Which means that you need to store more fat to meet those vitamin D requirements. If you eat the reason why vegan diet is a better idea is you're less likely to suffer from vitamin A toxicity. That is because the breakdown of beta-carotene in your body into fully formed vitamin A is tightly regulated. Which means that if you consume a lot of meat, you'd be at a greater risk of vitamin A toxicity. I oppose the use of preservatives in our food mainly because it's bad for the ultimately it's bad for the ecosystem. That if we kept trying to make our food last forever, our ecosystem would collapse. Food chains would collapse ultimately. If you kill an apex predator, it has a greater effect on the food chain than if you are to kill a an animal that is lower on the food chain. But eating vegetables has the lowest effect on the food chain. Eating vegetables has the least amount of effect on the food chain. The lowest effect on the food chain. Anyways, this should be it for this video. Stay tuned for episode 42, aka episode 42. As always, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for more content. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And as always, tschüss.